What's up, guys? It's Nick Davenport here, aka Mr. Mental Muscle. I'm here in Hinesville, Georgia. Now, what am I doing here? So I had a conference with the ASP, or the Association of Applied Sports Psychology, the Southeast region at Georgia Southern University. So I had a presentation that I did there. It was 7 topics that mental coaches should know, and it was about building the business, building the brand, your skill set, pretty much a well-rounded approach as Mind Body One does. It went pretty well, I would say. Have some feedback and comments on that, but all in all, it went okay. Now, I put up some questions on my Instagram story to see if anyone had anything to ask, and I got a few, so I'm gonna go through all of them and say what I think on the topic. Some people ask me about the business stuff, some people ask me about different mental training stuff, some people ask me about personal stuff, so we're gonna go through that. So let's start off. The first question I got was sleep. So there was really nothing else there but the word sleep. So I don't know what to take from that. So I'm assuming they're asking what are my thoughts on it, or maybe the mental performance aspect. So I'll go from that place first. So generally speaking, sleep, this is where we replenish our energy through the night. So if you want to talk about things like ATP, adenosine triphosphate, this is your body's energy for everything. But when we get depleted, exercise, our daily life, this needs to be replenished. And when we go to sleep, the adenosine receptors in our brain get filled up. And when we go to sleep, they get kind of cleaned out, kind of like a sanitation worker for your brain, right? So that's why coffee, or caffeine, I should say, it blocks these receptors. So basically what happens is it keeps it from accumulating. So it doesn't necessarily give you energy per se. It is a stimulant, but at the same time, it makes you harder to get more fatigued. So that's why coffee has its role, or caffeine, I should say. But when it goes back to sleep, people recommend about 6 to 8 hours. I personally get at least 6. I don't really sleep too much past that. I get right up and go, but everyone's different. Some people are night owls, but everyone's different in that manner. So figure out what works for you. So like I said, I'm not too sure what they meant around sleep, but yeah, it's good for you. Don't deprive yourself. This next question says, what major projects are you focusing on? Now, this is a good question, and there's a lot of them. Some I can talk about because I want people to know what I'm working on, and some I won't talk about because got to keep them guessing. So the ones I can talk about, I would say I'm working on a few projects regarding my apps. So I'm working on the Think Fast app, which is a mental performance app that entails cognitive training, reaction time, working memory on that side, but also mental skills and psychology, because on that note, a lot of mental coaches that do more general sports psych or mental skills training work, they don't really integrate the cognitive, or they see it as more gimmicky or not as useful. But me personally, I use all of it. So this app, Think Fast, has those things with the cognitive, which is pretty prominent, but it's not a lot on the more mental skill side. So we have different tasks on this app, like sledging mode is probably the most popular, where it has trash talk or defeating thoughts such as you can't do it, you don't got what it takes from an external standpoint, but it also has from an internal standpoint, we can hear thoughts like, I'm not enough, I don't have what it takes. So you're hearing this in real time in your head. You can do it on a loudspeaker, or you can use noise cancellation headphones like I like to use. So it's really submerging the participant so they can get this in real time, and you can have them refute these thoughts. So not only are they getting submerged with these unproductive thoughts, you can have them counter them in real time so they can work on actively working their mindset, because we talk about these skills all the time, but how do we truly work on them? Also, they have noises like crowd noise, street noise, sirens, alarms. So it's really about throwing off that cognitive load, giving them more overwhelming thoughts, as well as having them do something like, say, shoot free throws, take at bats. With my tactical population, they do their tactical gun training. So you can do this in so many different ways. Also has a box breathing. So that's a big thing, breathing for energy management. We talk about that a lot in sports psychology. So it has different features from that. So it's really an all-encompassing app. It's not an end-all be-all. I don't think no app can be that. But guess what? Think Fast is as much as it can be. So that project I'm really excited for to be finished soon, because once it's ready, people can start using it as themselves, just using it individually, or if you're a practitioner, there'll be abilities for you to learn it and use it so you can grow your business and make your skills better. So that's one project I'm definitely trying to get done. Pocket Thoughts has been out since June last year. We had some ups and downs, but we're getting it finalized. So that's on the App Store and the Google Play Store. So my apps and the tech side is something I'm very, very big on getting out there. But on the non-tech side, I would say I'm trying to build out more stuff on Mind Body One University, where we're building out the criteria and coursework to help practitioners become better, because there's different organizations that have their protocols, but what Mind Body One is doing, I really believe in my brand and what we're doing in the world with our training. So we're going to get people educated so we can grow too, and this can become a mainstay, because that's how I see this really taking off. So that's the things that I will talk about. There's some things I would like to say are bigger than what I just mentioned, but you're not going to get those, at least not yet. So stay tuned though. When you hear about it, you're going to be like, dang, Nick, you're truth. So this next one says, burning legs, 20-mile run this AM. So it's not a question. I think it's a comment. So good stuff. I know this person personally. So great stuff. 20-mile ride. Impressive. Very impressive. This next one. There are many aspects to peak and mental performance. What should we focus on daily? Now, this one, I guess, can go a lot of different ways because peak mental performance is not a one-stop shop. It's not only this or that. It's a component of multiple things, just like fitness, right? You don't only do cardio. You don't only do strength training. You don't only do mobility, flexibility. You have to do all of it. Now, depending on your goals, you might do one to more degree. So I think if I put it like this, if this makes any sense, if I was to say, what should we focus on daily from a mental performance standpoint? First and foremost, we need to do things that keep our mind sharp and require cognitive flexibility. So do something that's going to make you do tasks or things throughout the day that you won't typically do, that you have to shift your focus to keep novelty in your brain. The brain does not like novelty, but at the same time, novelty is good, meaning new things stimulate the brain more, but new things also make you have to adapt and reassess. So if you're doing that constantly by learning something new or putting yourself in a situation you're not typically used to, this is good. So make sure that's in your day. I would say make sure you're active, but not just general movement. Let's look at activity that makes us, once again, move in directions differently, require coordination, balance. So these type of activities are great. Strength training is always going to be good there too. Obviously your general cardio will help, but I want you to do things that make you move in different directions, require coordination and balance, because now the brain has to activate more, and respond in different ways than it typically would do in a linear cardio session or something like that. From a cognitive standpoint, something more direct, maybe do some tasks that require memory, have to hold information in your head while you do something else and then come back to it, because I will work on something called working memory. So working memory is the ability to hold and manipulate information in real time, which is literally everything we do, holding a conversation, driving, talking. So make sure you're doing things that require high working memory load and different things of that nature. Okay, so this next one from the same person, what is the best way to build a small Reiki business? Now, I'm not too familiar with what Reiki is. I've heard of it. Now, I understand it's some kind of a healing process, so I can't get too deep into those parameters, but I understand business pretty well. And I also understand building a business that's not widely accepted. And I understand Reiki is not widely accepted. It's kind of like new age stuff, right? So I understand that. Building something that's different as a business. Now, I see over here my dog Stroop. He's making his first appearance on camera. So you see where his name comes from and what I do. So I would say, first and foremost, what is your brand? I always say brand before business. Business, obviously, you need a model and know what you're going to do to generate revenue. That's first and foremost. But the brand tells you the story, your niche, your lane. What are people getting when they get you or get your company? I don't know if you're going to have employees or it's going to be yourself, but what do they get out of that directly? If they understand, oh, this person prioritizes customer service, or this person prioritizes knowledge and their ability to think outside the box, maybe that's something you can go with, but that's something you have to make sure is first. And then once you start the business, how are you generating foot traffic, marketing? A lot of times we think we got to put out a bunch of ads, flyers. And nowadays flyers are dying out. I'm not saying don't use those, definitely can help, but that's money, that's a paper trail. But from an internet social media standpoint, you can put out so much marketing and branding without having to physically do anything but post videos and content, maybe doing YouTube videos on a session or Instagram clips on what Reiki is. Really, people understand the buy-in. Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is why you should do this, because it's beneficial to your health and well-being. So that's probably the simplest things you can do to get the business started. And then be different. Like, I know Reiki is not the biggest industry, but I've heard of it. So people are doing this. So if you want to stand out against the competition, you got to do something that's obviously sound in the practice, but make sure it separates you from everyone else. Now, this next question, why do I stress so much? Maybe I have PTSD. Well, this is not clinical diagnosis, so you need to get that checked out personally. So this is just educational advice, but PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. And typically this is after something severe happens. It could be exposure to a violent act. It could be something sexually. It could be a disaster. Many things could go into this category, but a lot of times it's subclinical, meaning it's not a severe, intense duration. So it might fall under that. And now for day-to-day stressors, that's usually what most of us deal with. So think about things like stress management techniques, things make you calm, not over worry. A lot of people get anxious because when we talk about stress, there's a physical or physiological as well as psychological response. So physiologically speaking, your body secretes different hormones, neurotransmitters such as say cortisol, that hormones that break down tissue that make more energy to keep you going. Adrenaline or epinephrine is to get the muscles to get more constricted blood flow, more respiratory rates, so you can take in more oxygen. So the goal is to keep you going. But the problem is when we stress nowadays, it goes much longer than it should. This fight or flight was meant to be instantaneous, get away and subside, rest and digest after you get from the fight or flight. That's the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest, calm, and the sympathetic, which is the fight or flight, gets you ready. But we spend a lot of time in the sympathetic nervous system zone when we don't need to be. So this is where this is a problem. We talk about stress management. So it's not just about necessarily feeling good or not worrying. It's also keeping your body regulated and not overwhelming it physically as well as mentally, because from a mental standpoint, overwhelm yourself, you get cognitive decline because you can't think clearly, you make bad decisions, impulse control. So these all go hand in hand with dealing with a lot of stress. So it may not be chalked up to PTSD, but basically think about what are you doing in your life or what's happening to you that maybe you could mitigate better so you don't stress as much. Okay, so this may go hand in hand with the last question. What do you think is the most overused word in psychology? So I wouldn't say PTSD. I do hear trauma a lot, so that's used a lot. I won't go with that one. Maybe I would say narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder. People attribute that all the time when they have someone like an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend that they thought was a jerk. Now, narcissistic personality disorder is a very small percent of the population, but it does occur. But mostly it's something that is diagnosed over years. Once again, it's that duration, that intensity, how severe it is. Is it not attributed to other things? So we can't just throw that word around. But from a subclinical standpoint, the term narcissist or narcissism is a trait. So people can have that. So I think that's one of the most overused terms in psychology. So when people throw that around, make sure you're not just saying it because someone made you feel bad or you don't like them. Make sure it makes sense, because if it's narcissistic, it's usually they have over grandiose thoughts of themselves, their center of attention. They have a God complex. They don't want to hear what you got going on, but they think that what they're doing is better than you. So they can have those traits, but I think it just gets used so much that it's losing meaning and people just say it to say it. All right. What are your political beliefs? I don't really get into my personal stuff really like that. So I'm answering like this. I believe in whatever is good for the country and whatever is good for me. Now, I'll make some fun of something I saw around here in Hinesville. I saw a Confederate flag. Now, this is not about politics because usually associated with like conservatives or Republicans. Let's forget Republican, conservative. Let's forget liberal, Democrat. I'm a former history teacher and I love history in general. And I thought it was hilarious when I saw this flag that was stitched, a Confederate flag to an American flag. Now, when you think about this doesn't make any sense because the Confederate States of America, who was ran by Jefferson Davis, that was their president, they seceded, meaning they left the United States of America, which was run by Abraham Lincoln. So the fact that those two flags were stitched together really doesn't make any sense because they literally made the Confederate States to get away from America. So in some kind of weird patriotic mindset they think they had, it didn't really work because that literally stands for opposing views. They fought a whole war, if you don't remember, called the Civil War, that had a lot of people die and it freed the slaves and all that good stuff. So I think that's just funny in itself. So if that tells you anything more about my political beliefs, maybe it does. Now, this last question. I'm a sports psych student, not sure what path to take. Do you have any advice? And do you have thoughts on ASP? So like I said, I'm here because of the ASP, which is the Association of Applied Sports Psychology South Regional Conference. I did a presentation there. So I have thoughts on it. All in all, it's the accrediting body. It's probably the biggest one for sport and performance psychology. They have a certification called the CMPC, which stands for Certified Mental Performance Consultant. This is basically someone who's certified to do mental skills training on different levels from an educational standpoint, not clinical. Now, clinicians do get this certification, but it's supposed to be applied. So this is where my criticism does come in. Applied means more hand-on and practical. And a lot of things they're doing still veers more to like therapeutic. It's more like interventions, which is fine. I use a lot of those things as well in my practice, but I also do more hands-on things, as you guys know. So my criticism would be is to have more diversity. The guy who really invented this industry, his name's Coleman Griffith, and almost 100 years ago to the date, he created his methodology where he worked on reaction time, decision making, team dynamics, personality theories, coaching philosophies, mindset skills. So he was really looking at how the holistic athlete perform from a mental standpoint. There's a lot of components to that. And if you see, a lot of that is still instilled into Mind Body One. So I think I have to joke, I'm the new Coleman Griffith. But the funny thing is, since he's a pioneer, we know him and they cherish him. They even have an award named after him. They don't really illustrate that in the practices these days. And I think that's the criticism I have, that we don't illustrate. There's a multifaceted way to this. And we kind of indoctrinated the younger students who are younger than me. I'm 36. So the ones up and coming and below me, that they don't see that we're in 2025 and there's so many ways we can approach this industry, but they're not really doing it because the people teaching it are open to the newer things. And I'm kind of in that middle of that. So I think as a student, start shadowing and interning with people, and then you can see what you may like, may not like, what's good for you, what's not good for you, or maybe open up to you things that you never thought you would do. And this way you can get the experience, make the connections, because if you reach out to me, go ahead, and you could get better opportunities because I have connections. But also I want to impart what I know to you, so you don't have to go through what I went through. You can kind of jump the line, because isn't that a point of learning and interning, to get an experience so you can get a better idea how to be a best professional as possible? That's what I do. So talk to people in the industry, find out things, do things adjacent to what you're comfortable with. Because a lot of people like to do only what they like. If they like to do more of the mental skills, interventions, that's all they do. Do some cognitive stuff, do some personality research, learn strength and conditioning methods, diversify your skill set, and that'll take you so far. So that's probably the best advice I can give you, because that's what happened to me. I got so diverse that it made it hard for people to say no to me, because I became very valuable at what I do. So I hope that helps for you, and I hope you have a great journey. All right, so thanks guys for tuning in. This was great. I appreciate the questions. I hope I answered them pretty well for those who asked, and whoever had statements. I appreciate your input, period. And as always, guys, thanks for tuning in, and get your mind right.